Because the truth is, I know I would have never gotten my degree at all because I didn't go to Stanford. I went to Tennessee State University, but I never would have gotten my diploma at all because I was supposed to graduate back in 1975. But I was short one credit. And I figured I'm going to just forget it because, I'm not going to march with my class. Because by that point, I was already on television. I'd been in television since I was 19 and a sophomore. Granted, I was the only television anchor person that had an 11 o'clock curfew doing the 10 o'clock news. Seriously, my dad was like, well, that news is over 10:30, be home by 11. But that didn't matter to me because I was earning a living. I was on my way. So I thought, I'm going to let this college thing go. And I only had one credit. But my father, from that time on, and for years after, was always on my case because I did not graduate. He'd say, Oprah Gail, that's my middle name, I don't know what you're going to do without that degree. And I'd say, but Dad, I have my own television show. And he'd say, well, I still don't know what you're going to do without that degree. And I'd say, but Dad, now I'm a talk show host. He'd say, I don't know how you're going to get another job without that degree. So in 1987, Tennessee State University invited me back to speak at their commencement. By then, I had my own show, was nationally syndicated. I'd made a movie, had been nominated for an Oscar, and founded my company, Harpo. But I told them I cannot come and give a speech unless I can earn one more credit, because my dad's still saying, I'm not going to get anywhere without that degree. So I finished my coursework, I turned in my final paper, and I got the degree. And my dad was very proud, and I know that if anything happens, that one credit will be my salvation. But I also know why my dad was insisting on that diploma, because as B.B. King put it, the beautiful thing about learning is that nobody can take that away from you. And learning is really, in the broadest sense, what I really want to talk about today, because your education, of course, isn't ending here. In many ways, it's only just begun. The world has so many lessons to teach you. I consider the world, this earth, to be like a school, and our life, the classrooms. And sometimes here in this planet Earth school, the lessons often come dressed up as detours or roadblocks, and sometimes as full-blown crises. And the secret I've learned to getting ahead is being open to the lessons from the grandest universe of all, that is the universe itself. It's being able to walk through life eager and open to self-improvement and that which is going to best help you evolve, because that's really why we're here, to evolve as human beings. So, to grow into being more of ourselves, always moving to the next level of understanding, the next level of compassion and growth. I think one of the greatest compliments I've ever received, I interviewed with a reporter when I was first starting out in Chicago, and then many years later I saw the same reporter, and she said to me, you know what? You really haven't changed. You've just become more of yourself. And that is really what we're all trying to do. Become more of ourselves. And I believe that there is a lesson in almost everything that you do in every experience. And getting the lesson is how you move forward. It's how you enrich your spirit. And trust me, I know that inner wisdom is more precious than wealth. The more you spend it, the more you gain. So today, I just want to share a few lessons, meaning 3, that I've learned in my journey so far. And aren't you glad? Don't you hate it when somebody says I'm going to share a few and it's 10 lessons later? So it's only going to be 3. The 3 lessons that have had the greatest impact on my life have to do with feelings, with failure, and with finding happiness. A year after I left college, I was given the opportunity to co-anchor the 6 o'clock news in Baltimore, because the whole goal in the media at the time I was coming up was that you try to move to larger markets, and Baltimore was a much larger market than Nashville. So getting the 6 o'clock news co-anchor job at 22 was such a big deal. It felt like the biggest deal in the world at the time. And I was so proud because I was finally going to have my chance to be like Barbara Walters, which is who I've been trying to emulate since the start of my TV career. So I was 22 years old, making $22,000 a year. And it's where I met my best friend, Gail, who was an intern at the same TV station. And once we became friends, we'd say, oh my God, I can't believe it. You're making $22,000 and you're only 22. Imagine when you're 40 and you're making 40. When I turned 40, I was so glad that didn't happen. So here I am, 22, making $22,000 a year. And yet it didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. The first sign, as President Hennessy was saying, was when they tried to change my name. The news director said to me at the time, nobody's going to remember Oprah, so we want to change your name. We've come up with a name we think that people will remember and people will like. It's a friendly name. Susie. Very friendly. You can't be angry with Susie. Remember Susie. But my name wasn't Susie. And you know, I'd grown up not really loving my name because when you're looking for your little name on the lunch boxes and the license plate tags, you're never going to find Oprah. So I grew up not loving the name, but once I was asked to change it, I thought, well, it is my name. And do I look like a Susie to you? So I thought, no, it doesn't feel right. I'm not going to change my name. And if people remember it or not, that's okay. And then they said they didn't like the way I looked. This was in 1976 where your boss could call you in and say, I don't like the way you look. Now that would be called lawsuit. But back then, they could just say, I don't like the way you look. Which in case some of you in the back, if you can't tell, is nothing like Barbara Walters. So they sent me to a salon where they gave me a perm. And after a few days, all my hair fell out and I had to shave my head. And then they really didn't like the way I looked. Because now I am black and bald and sitting on TV. But even worse than being bald, I really hated being sent to report on other people's tragedies as a part of my daily duty. Knowing that I was just expected to observe when everything in my instinct told me that I should be doing something. I should be lending a hand. So, as President Hennessy said, I'd cover a fire, and then I'd go back and I'd try to give the victims blankets. And I wouldn't be able to sleep at night because of all the things I was covering during the day. And meanwhile, I was trying to sit gracefully like Barbara and make myself talk like Barbara. And I thought, well, I could make a pretty goofy Barbara. And if I could figure out how to be myself, I could be a pretty good Oprah. I was trying to sound elegant like Barbara. And sometimes I didn't read my copy because something inside me said, this should be spontaneous. You know, it should be spontaneous. So I wanted to get the news as I was giving it to the people. So sometimes I wouldn't read my copy and it'd be like 6 people in a pileup on I-40. Oh my goodness. Sometimes I wouldn't read the copy and because I wanted to be spontaneous, and I'd come across a list of words I didn't know and mispronounce. And one day I was reading copy and I called Canada, Canada. And I did just that. I cracked myself up on the air. And I decided, this Barbara thing's not going too well. I should try being myself. But at the same time, my dad was saying, Oprah Gail, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. You better keep that job. And my boss was saying, this is the nightly news. You're an anchor, not a social worker. Just do your job. So I was juggling these messages of expectation and obligation and feeling really miserable with myself. I'd go home at night and fill up my journals because I've kept a journal since I was 15, so I now have volumes of journals. So I'd go home at night and fill up my journals about how miserable I was, frustrated, and then I'd eat my anxiety. That's where I learned that habit. And after 8 months, I lost that job. They said I was too emotional. I was too much. But since they didn't want to pay out the contract, they put me on a talk show in Baltimore. And the moment I sat down on that show, the moment I did, I felt like I'd come home. I realized that TV could be more than just a playground, but a platform for service, for helping other people live their lives. And the moment I sat down doing that talk show, It felt like breathing. It felt right. And that's where everything that followed for me began. And I got that lesson. When you're doing the work you're meant to do, it feels right. And every day is a bonus, regardless of what you're getting paid.